Raf,
James.
we're coming to you with another red hot episode of Down Around. But before we do...
Yep, sorry. Promo alert, promo alert, promo alert.
Promo alert, we have a deal for you.
Do not skip forward 15 seconds and then another 15 seconds when we're still talking about the deal. Do not do that.
Just buckle in. We're making you a deal.
Yeah, art of the deal.
This is obviously the free episode that comes out weekly. I know there are some of you that are sitting at home that say, I love what the Down Round boys are putting out. I love their content. I love their takes. I love their unique view on the world.
Yep.
But I'm price sensitive.
Yes.
Inflation is running rampant.
Yeah, it is.
You
Cost
know?
of living.
Cost of living.
Well, cosy living? I had not heard that term.
Cosy lives. Yeah, allegedly people were saying it, but certainly not in the circles I can sort with.
No.
We've got an announcement for you. And for the people who are already subscribed to our premium offering, you and only you are allowed to skip forward. We're running a sale on our premium. If you subscribe now to a yearly membership to Down Around Premium, it will cost you $49.
That is so cheap. Because, think about it. If you're paying $7 a month for a whole year, let me run the numbers. 7 times 10, you start with 7 times 70, plus an extra 7 times 2. That's how I'd run the numbers. $84 is what it would typically cost you if you're paying $7 a month. $49 is basically half of that.
Yeah, don't think about it too hard, but it's about half of it. Imagine what you can spend the rest of that $34 on. You could buy 3 beers.
Yep.
You could buy...
Depending on where you go.
Depending on where you go.
Might be 2.
And definitely schooners.
And not fancy stuff.
No, nothing fancy. Just go for the...
Your Carlton United breweries kind of stuff.
Go for your Coney or your Lion stuff. The most craft you can possibly get is James Squire 150 lashes.
Yep.
You cannot go more expensive than that. You could also spend it on a bargain basement PlayStation game. Certainly not a new release.
No. Or you could maybe go to Uniqlo and see what they've got on sale there.
I reckon you could get a nice pair of cargo pants from Uniqlo.
Or...
Shorts. No, only shorts.
Shit shorts.
Yeah.
In the wrong season. That's the thing. Maybe right now, given how fucking hot and humid it is, probably some big fleece numbers that you would not want to put on because it's just too hot.
Yep.
The season is wrong. Or you can have one entire year of this kind of analysis.
Anyway.
Most of you have the cash to get both.
Go to the link in the show notes, and that will take you right to the subscription page. We'd love to have you. You can join our Discord. You can participate in all of the very high-minded, elite intellectual conversation that takes place there. Mm-hmm. And you also get an extra episode a week. What a phenomenal deal. Click the link. We'll catch you soon. Today we're talking about an episode that we've hyped for no reason.
Oh, I think there's a reason. I say with a mouthful of white chocolate macadamia and salted caramel cookie.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good cookie.
There's a reason. We went anthropological. We went gonzo, I would dare to say, with this episode.
We've done real journalism.
Yeah.
For the first time in our goddamn lives. And that includes when I was an actual journalist. We are talking about Ozempic.
Ozempic.
We've actually done an episode with Tim Doyle from Eucalyptus, which is one of the main Australian marketplaces that are selling Ozempic right now.
He's Australia's #1 Ozempic dealer.
Absolutely, yeah. We mentioned it in our end-of-year wrap, so some of you might be familiar with this. But we have a little bit of an update on the ongoing stuff that Eucalyptus is doing about this. But we also promised that we're going to do a proper one on this. It's kind of angular to our core focus, which is technology, but this is technology.
It's biotech.
It's biotech, it's pharma.
There's tech in the name.
And also it's a hypergrowth stock.
Yes.
And as soon as it's a hypergrowth stock, that's tech to me, baby.
Yeah.
That's technology.
If it's growing, I'm interested.
If it's growing, it's made in a lab.
Yeah.
A bunch of Poindexters are really excited about it. That's tech.
Now, but most importantly with the Ozempic episode, dun, 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 James and I both took Ozempic.
For a brief period of time.
Yeah, we took Ozempic. Just to bring it to you, to bring the facts to you.
Yeah, we're going to give you the top-level business analysis of this phenomenon and its future. And we're also, we're on the ground, we're gonzo. We're telling you subjectively how it feels.
Yeah.
And you know what? You might be thinking, that's not what I'm here Down Around for. Sorry, that's the heat we're bringing to you.
Yeah.
Today. Anyway, but we'll talk about it.
Surely you're curious.
Surely you're curious. To kick off the episode, we'll talk about, for the 5 of you that are kind of like, what the hell is Ozempic and why are you talking about it? It's the latest pharma craze. it's generated...
It's the latest human craze to lose weight.
Yeah, well, it's the latest salvo in the human war on weight. But it's also, and here's the down around angle, has generated the most valuable company in Europe.
Yes.
Which is Novo Nordisk, the company that makes this. Now, long-time listeners of Down Around will know that we have been historically a little bit down on Europe, mostly for comedy reasons, because it's kind of funny to say like, oh, the French are stupid, it's a failing country. Germany...
No, UK is a failing country. The French are stupid but funny.
Yep.
Germany, I have no sense of humor. But good at trains.
Germany has, I suppose they're an advanced manufacturing economy, bully to them. Europe does produce a lot of great luxury brands.
Yeah, and is a sweet place to go on holiday.
It's the Amalfi Coast. Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, we've been on record saying, like, Americans shit on Europe and being like, oh, yes, you have no innovation or whatever, but if you've got a super yacht...
Where are you taking it?
Where are you taking it? Are you taking it just, like, off the coast of Omaha?
That would be a challenge, given
Nebraska
is landlocked. But again, like, are you taking your gigantic $150 million super yacht off the coast of Mississippi? Are you going to like the Gulf of Mexico? Maybe you are.
Maybe.
There are some super yachts around there, but most likely
Greek Islands, baby.
Greek Islands.
Mykonos,
the Croatian coast.
Yeah, Split.
That beautiful Mediterranean air. You can't recreate that.
No.
You cannot recreate that in the Bay Area.
No, unless metaverse, I guess.
The metaverse. That's the best claim that the US has towards being an elite luxury vacation destination.
Yeah, I can be on my super yacht down near Miami and put on a Vision Pro.
And pretend that I'm in Mykonos. That's all they could do. But any luxury brand that's worth its salt is probably European. Yeah. But on top of that, Novo Nordisk, the Danish company that is building Ozempic, which is a GLP-1 inhibitor.
It makes you lose weight. So let's talk about the drug very quickly first.
Talk about the drug very quickly, and then we'll talk a bit about Novo Nordisk as a company because it's kind of interesting. Ozempic and other GLP-1 inhibitor drugs have been around for a little while, but their main function has been basically blood sugar management and diabetes management. That was the reason they were sold, and it was Novo Nordisk's biggest business. Obviously, it's incredibly important to manage the blood sugar of diabetics, but it's not a particularly sexy business.
Yeah, I mean, Novo Nordisk was called, and I'm going to get this wrong, like Novo Insulatorium or some shit.
Yeah, GLP-1 inhibitors serve that purpose. They help with blood sugar management for diabetics. But it was realized that one other output of that is weight loss.
Yeah, it massively suppresses your appetite.
Hugely suppresses your appetite. There's a long history of drugs that purport to help with weight loss for various things.
Heroin.
Heroin is a big one. Unfortunately, it's got a PR problem.
It's got a PR problem?
Heroin has one of the world's worst PR problems for a product. As well as the various vitamins and supplements and fat burner pills and whatever. It's a long-standing human desire for various reasons to lose weight. A lot of pharmaceuticals have kind of claimed to do it, have not been super effective at it. But Ozempic and other GLP-1 inhibitors seem to work. And the reason that they seem to work is that they just suppress diet altogether. So, yeah, Novo Nordisk, I'm not going to pretend that they discovered that this was a side effect 3 years ago. They've obviously known this is a side effect for a very long time because they've been testing. They have 20-plus years of human trials and in-world use of their drug to know that this is one of the side effects for diabetics that were using it. But it's only recently that they've actually been able to pitch national drug regulatory bodies on the fact of, hey, are we able to get this prescribed
for weight loss?
For weight loss.
Yeah.
And there's been a ton of reporting in the New York Times and at Bloomberg, as I said, and a bunch of other publications about this becoming an insane health craze, which started with celebrities. Celebrities being strictly managed on their caloric intake, generally speaking, whether it's pop stars that need to maintain a certain image or actors that need to be in certain roles or whatever.
Well, the camera puts on 10 pounds. The camera puts on 10 pounds. I'm just looking at the camera for this for the TikTok. Oh, shoot.
They don't do it. These ones don't, actually. These cameras, actually, they're slimming. Yeah. So if you're watching us on TikTok, know that we are 40 or 50 kilograms heavier than what we appear on the screen. Anyway, so this sort of went off and it suddenly became sort of like the hot drug of the world. Everyone kind of wanted it for this reason.
They reckon Trump was on it.
Oh, yeah.
That's unconfirmed.
Unconfirmed. But I'm sure
Come on, he lost a few, you know.
Yeah.
Rumors that Kim Kardashian was on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like all this stuff.
Exactly. So
They're all rumors, unconfirmed. I'm not claiming that anyone was on anything.
basically this sent Novo Nordisk's stock price into the stratosphere because the demand for this drug was unbelievably high. As I mentioned, this was like a fairly quaint provincial company. It's a Danish company.
Danish.
This, a part of this small but vibrant Danish pharmaceutical industry. And the sheer demand for Ozempic pushed their stock price so high that they are now the most valuable company in Europe, one. And two, it's had like a vastly distortionary effect on the Danish economy as a whole. Like Danish GDP now has to be reported as minus Novo Nordisk to show the actual state of the Danish economy. It's kind of like the fact that Ireland has to report basically an altered GNI.
Adjusted GNI.
Adjusted GNI, which is their gross national income, minus basically the inputs of tech companies, because obviously Ireland is a tax haven for America and the world's richest tech companies.
Yeah.
They route their income through Ireland to get huge tax cuts. And if you report the Irish GDP with all of that included, it means that Ireland is one of the highest GDP per capita in the entire world.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not saying that Ireland is not a well-developed first world economy.
But they're a net exporter of people.
Yeah, totally.
Which is not typical of like a very rich society.
Of the richest society in the world, yeah. They have to, but the same thing is happening with Denmark now, except for literally one pharmaceutical company to give a clearer picture of how that economy works.
But Novo Nordisk itself, very interesting company. Of the voting rights of Novo Nordisk, 77% is owned by a not-for-profit. How does that work?
We're getting back into OpenAI territory here.
Yeah, except that I think in this case, it's been a large benefit. So, like, we won't go into, like, the Wikipedia article of the history of Novo Nordisk, but basically, this is my understanding. Feel free to jump in if you feel like I'm off-piste. But the Cliff's Notes is a Danish pharmacist was doing a tour of America, heard about this pretty cool drug, this is in the early 20th century, called insulin, and his ears picked up because his wife, who was also a pharmacist, was a diabetic, and he would do anything to kind of help her with her diabetes. Went and checked out this Canadian company that was making this insulin thing for diabetics, was like, this is absolutely wonderful. Can I make this in Europe, this insulin thing? And they were like, you can, as long as you don't make, quote, nasty profits. That's like direct quote. You cannot make heaps of profit out of selling this insulin thing. This is supposed to be to help the world, which is like famously about like the insulin patents and whatever. It was like, thank God it wasn't like, and this is, I'm now quoting because I've got no problem with Big Pharma on the record, no problem with Big Pharma. This is a drug that obviously will keep people alive. We don't want to be charging them masses of money so that corporations can make masses of profits. So yes, you can make it, but you have to promise to not make these nasty profits. So matey went back to Europe, back to Denmark, started Novo Insulinatorium or some shit like that.
So the name of the company, just so no one walks out of here misinformed, well, actually Novo Nordisk is a merger of two companies that were working in this space. Novo Therapeutisk Laboratorium.
Laboratorium, that's what I was going for.
And the other one was Nordisk Insulin Laboratorium.
There you go.
So it's a merger of two companies. Which they actually merged in 1989.
But the ownership structure was that a not-for-profit, the like Novo Nordisk Foundation, owned the majority of the shares in this company and owned this company and had the majority of the voting rights. This is literally back in like 1920. What that led to over time as they explored weight loss, they went down the path of weight loss. Like weight loss wasn't a very sexy kind of drug category for many decades. It's like, oh, here's something that you should be, that investors are going to see money in and therefore going to be investing in companies. But because of the nature of the ownership structure was owned by this not-for-profit that had a much kind of longer vision and did believe in the idea that like obesity, basically the thinking was like obesity leads to a bunch of different diseases and deaths and blah, 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 and should be something that people are focusing on. And so therefore, especially with their majority voting rights, allowed Novo Nordisk to keep exploring this like obesity drug thing. It led to them being able to like produce Ozempic or come up with Ozempic when in the more commercial environment, when you had like short-term, when you had shareholders who were more concerned with like short-term shareholder return or whatever, you might not have been able to like make the investment into a product like this that at the time like was just not seen as something that would ever be particularly profitable.
But yeah, you're right. A lot of it came down to managing the fact that they had a patent for a drug that was not allowed to have insane profits. And there were a few other like little benefits that came out of it. But the main thing is that Novo Nordisk is, as you said, like 77% owned by essentially a charitable foundation. And it's been kind of funny watching that. It actually is kind of like OpenAI-ish in the sense of it's like you have a parent company that has a specific aim. In one case, it's like safe development of AI, and in this case, it's like the betterment of mankind and the flourishing of human health and whatever. And they have a subsidiary that is suddenly in their own areas like the most valuable companies imaginable. It's an incredibly funny sort of arrangement to find themselves in. And they're both navigating it in like kind of similar ways where it's like sort of bending the rules a bit and like really pushing the limit of their remit to be like, we have one of the most valuable products on earth right now. Are we allowed to kind of like make a better moolah?
Yeah, exactly. But it seems like in the Novo Nordisk case, like the not-for-profit that has all these voting rights and owns them. Well, I don't know if they own the majority of it. I think they own like something like 30% of the actual stock, but because of the
majority voting rights,
the governance situation or whatever. But they have like within their constitution, they see themselves as an organization that will exist forever. Direct quote. Which already is a little chilling to just someone.
I actually don't want to think about any company existing forever.
I don't think about anything existing forever other than, I don't know, maybe like punishment for evil.
Very, very strict punishment. The ultimate punishment for evil.
That would be nice if that exists, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to exist.
So Earth is a cold, dead, obliterated rock hurtling through the cosmos like the AI kills us all.
Yeah, but the Novo Nordisk Foundation
is still there, slugging along and like making weight loss shots.
Yeah, distributing kind of insulin to like various species around the universe. Anyway, that is literally one of its goals. And they do have some kind of, if you were conspiracy-minded, which I am not. No. Again, cold, hard, objective facts here at Down Round.
But we listen people out. Yeah. We will always listen people out.
So they spend 4% a year of their assets under management. I should say, the assets under management are like $160 billion. Again, if you're conspiracy-minded, that's bigger than like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and this kind of stuff. You know, this is a serious NFP.
Sure, yeah.
That's a fair bit of dosh.
Yeah.
So they
should start spending on election interference.
Right? I mean, they spend 4% a year because they're like, which like doesn't seem that, when you've got 160 bill under management, 4%, you know, it's like, but no, we're going to be very strict about this 4%, very Danish, because we want to exist forever.
Yeah, remember, we're going to be around forever.
Rule 1.
Long after you and your descendants are dead, we're going to be chugging along.
So only 4% a year is what we're going to spend. The majority of it is on stem cell research, which I personally think is a very promising...
Biotech.
Yeah.
Stem cell research.
It's good stuff.
To me, that's one of those umbrella terms which just means you're working on something cool.
Yeah. It's like DNA
Stem cell, DNA, you know, what, RNA maybe? I don't know.
But yeah, so like... But they're very, very focused on obesity. At the root cause of obesity, this is where like conspiracy theorists' ears might prick up. They're concerned about the root cause of obesity. Which, I don't know, what's the root cause of obesity? Like,
desire, apparently. It's getting a bit airy-fairy.
If you got 160 bill to spend on getting rid of the root cause?
Yeah, it is kind of, because as I said before this, they were a very, very unsexy company doing diabetes management. And if you go to their website now and compare it to their website 3 or 4 years ago, and like their mission statement and all this kind of stuff, it has definitely been tweaked to like target their new money-making enterprise, which, you know, again, funny.
Yeah, and so the actual experience it's one of, you know, itself of like taking Ozempic, which fits into this, you're injecting this stuff into your body. The needle thing, like, it is slick. Like, it feels, you get, the box is expensive. It's like Apple packaging. When you receive your Ozempic or whatever, the packaging is pristine. This is like thick cardboard with like a magnetized kind of flap, all this kind of gear. Open it up. There's this svelte, I get like injection pen. I think people would be familiar with like an injection pen, but it's like, it's curved. Like it's really nicely curved. It doesn't have like sharp corners. It's kind of slightly thicker in the middle than it is at the ends. And it's got a kind of a matte finish on it. And you kind of twist it round. You do this little twisty thing on the top. It's quite mechanical. Like it's quite a delightful experience of injecting oneself. Like you twist it round to the dosage required, shove it in your thigh. That's like the suggested place. And then press the button on the end and it makes this like click and whir and go pull it out. But point being, it's like, it feels expensive.
Yeah, totally.
It's a premium experience.
It's a prestige product. And, again, it comes back to what they're kind of pitching it to. Again, this is a product that your favorite celebrities are using. This is a product, don't you want to look like your favorite celebrities? Wouldn't you love to look like these people? And I think this all kind of fits into it, which, again, very funny that it's been operated under the auspices of a non-for-profit.
A not-for-profit that will exist forever.
That exists forever and is all about bettering mankind or whatever.
Well, let's talk about our own experience then with that facet of it. You are not hungry when you take Ozempic. It works, right? Like it suppresses one's appetite.
And like I think both of us only took a very low dose.
Yeah, so like the low starter dose.
Yeah, and we didn't upgrade to it. We just had a few doses of that. And it works in a kind of a weird, strange way where it's sort of...
For me, I was just like, I'm just not hungry.
Yeah.
Like you just stop being... After a few weeks, took a few weeks to kick in, but I just stopped being hungry. Just did not feel hungry at all.
Which is also like, there's been a lot of reporting that New York Times did a big story on this, Bloomberg did as well, that they're talking about. And this part of this is just probably over-indexed hype about it, but it does kind of like stop you from desiring other things like...
Yeah. For me, it was beer. Like the type of beer I like in particular is kind of XPAs, IPAs, basically like high-calorie beers. People say like, basically like having a bread roll. Like not dark beers.
Drinking a bread roll.
Yeah. But I like those ones. For whatever reason, alcohol and beer gets away with not putting, the nutrition breakdown on the back. I don't know how they skirted those laws, but, more power to them.
Can you imagine being served a pint at the pub and it's got like the table on the side of the glass?
But I mean, a can of beer doesn't have that.
No, you're right. Yeah.
And like, because I assume that would not look pretty.
No, I can't imagine a way to make that look good.
But point being, like I stopped enjoying the type of beers that I liked, which are, IPAs, XPAs, etc. It suppressed my desire for them.
Yeah.
I just no longer was like, oh, it doesn't taste good. Not into it anymore.
Yeah.
Not for me, thanks. I'll have a vodka soda, thank you. This kind of gear. Campari soda, let's be honest.
That's kind of the way that functions as opposed to like previous weight loss drugs is it just makes you eat less, which obviously you have lower caloric intake, you're going to lose weight. Obviously, this was not the intended purpose of the drug. The purpose was to manage your blood sugar levels. And you were also talking about the fact that it gave you like insane cravings for sugar.
Sugar, yeah. Another factor. Like, I never used to eat sugar. Like I don't really like high sugar things. It makes my mouth feel weird. Not something I've ever really liked. For 10 years more, I don't have like any sugar. But then all of a sudden when I was on Ozempic, I think it was because my body wasn't getting like enough energy. And when I said this to you, I was like, I'm craving sugar all of a sudden. Like, I just want sugary things. And you looked it up and you're like, oh, this is a very common side effect. Presumably because, like my body's just like, I need energy. Like, give me energy. Yeah,
well, this is one of the, we can obviously talk about the dark and evil side effects or whatever, of which there are a number. But one of them is that people are like, you have to be incredibly careful to actually be getting your caloric intake. Even if you're not feeling super hungry or whatever. Because otherwise, you're not just going to lose fat, you're going to lose muscle mass.
Yeah.
And that stuff is harder to put back on.
Well, that was something that I certainly found. And one of the reasons that I got off it pretty quickly was that, look, some may argue that I probably shouldn't have been taking it in the first place because my BMI probably doesn't fall into a range that would necessitate burning fat. I'm going to put it out there.
You were doing this for science and also for a podcast.
Yeah, and I wouldn't call myself a transhumanist, but I don't mind just experimenting with drugs on my body. Let's just put it out there.
Yeah, that's putting it lightly. about your proclivities.
Anyway. But no, like I work out and whatnot, and lost upper body. Like I lost muscle, 100%. Like my muscle went away because the body has nothing to turn into muscle. And it's like as soon as your body stops, this is the whole thing with burning fat that I understand is that your body burns sugar and it burns all of the things that you're putting into your body. And then once it's run out of that, it starts burning fat and muscle. And like your muscles are in I shouldn't go in, like we're getting into biology now, like a carbolic state. Your muscles don't want to be there. It takes a lot of upkeep to like have muscle. They want to be smaller because you got to maintain them with lots of protein and blah, blah, blah. So your body just gets rid of them as soon as it can because they're like too high maintenance. So yes, I lost a bunch of muscle as well as a bunch of fat. And as you say, the issue with losing muscle is that it takes fucking ages to put it back on.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the huge negatives. But yeah, so that's sort of like the subjective experience, how it feel. It eliminates desire, which is troubling because desire is one of the motivating aspects of the human race.
Yeah, and certainly of capitalism.
You need to desire something to achieve it, and if that goes away, whether it be for food or for beers,
think of the economy.
Think of the goddamn economy, folks. Anyway, we're getting esoteric here, but anyway, so as I said, weird provincial pharma company that's all of a sudden become the biggest company in Europe and remains so, purely on the back of investors being like, this is the ticket. We've found a weight loss drug that works. Obviously, the back end of that is the fact that Novo Nordisk did not have an insanely high industrial production capacity.
Yeah.
Because there are a shitload of diabetes management drugs out on the market. They were only one piece of that. Yes, there are a lot of people internationally that are prescribed that, but they're not the only game in town. They were a big player, but certainly not to the level of this is the hottest drug that everybody suddenly wants a piece of. So they were unable to meet demand for this new use case, which was starting to be prescribed. So there's a vast shortage now.
Yeah. Not enough Ozempic to go around.
Which has obviously caused one of the key problems, which is, and everyone keeps talking about right now, which is the people who have been using it for 10 years, 15 years to manage diabetes are not able to get their hands on it either, which is like one of the big controversies out there, which obviously leads to all these questions of like, who deserves it? Yeah.
On our episode with Tim Doyle, the argument from especially businesses who are selling it from a weight loss perspective are like, well, I mean, obesity is a precursor to diabetes or whatever,
Sure.
and like putting on weight can lead to diabetes, and like weight loss and obesity should be like taken more seriously as like a
medical issue.
Yeah, it's a medical issue. Like, who's to say that people with diabetes are more deserving of this drug than others?
Yeah, obviously a relatively self-serving argument, but fair enough. But anyway,
but also there are. I'm not arguing on behalf of Big Pharma. I'm an objectivist. There are a heap of different like diabetes management drugs, as you said. Like there is alternatives to Ozempic.
There are alternatives there, which some people are being put onto during this shortage. And there's the additional fact that Ozempic is not the only game in town. When we did our episode at the end of last year about the top 10 companies by market cap, some would describe it as a filler episode. I thought it was key to our general content and growth strategy, but whatever.
We keep referring to it, so it must have been important.
Yeah, and one of the top 10 biggest companies globally is Eli Lilly, who are another pharma giant. They offer a whole shitload of products, but they have in the pipeline Mounjaro.
Yeah, Mounjaro,
which is a Ozempic competitor.
Yeah, and you bet your ass I'll cop some of that for you, the listener, and I'll give it a crack. I'll shove it in.
Well, from now on, Down Round is no longer a tech podcast. We're sort of a pharmaceuticals podcast where we just inject RAF with more and more Baroque chemicals. Just see what happens.
Yeah.
And eventually it's going to be like, I'll be lining up with the syringe and being like, RAF, today we actually have Windex, which I picked up from my kitchen cupboard. How are we feeling about a Windex, RAF? Anyway, that's what Down Round's all about. And then occasionally we'll do an episode about Microsoft or something, I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, there's a bunch of... Then there's other companies coming up too. So there's this weird little struggle between Novo Nordisk on the one hand and then a whole bunch of these other pharma companies that are like hungering after this segment. So there was a lot of hype, especially last year when all this stuff was kicking off and it was being prescribed everywhere and there was all these blind items about celebrities using it and everyone wanted it, that it started to come up. What is kind of like the broader impact of GLP-1 inhibitors? Maybe it's a fad. Maybe it's a hype. Maybe it's just a weird hype cycle. But is this going to affect all these companies that sell like fast-moving consumer goods? Or whatever,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I have no idea what context we mentioned it in. But
We did talk about this. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
how it was showing up in people's quarterly earnings as like a key risk for gyms and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's going to be a key risk for big fitness companies, for like companies like McDonald's, companies like Coca-Cola.
Yeah, exactly. And like even like Woolies was kind of addressing it in like under risks.
Yeah. And I think that to this day, I'm pretty sure a lot of that was fluff in the sense that it was kind of like, well, we need to put something under our risk column.
Yeah.
And we also need to maybe soften the landing if it does actually turns out to be true and everyone is suddenly on this thing. Because the big question that's coming up in everyone's minds is the current version of the drug is difficult to get. It's very expensive. Very expensive. And
well,
also,
I think the one at the time when I was on it was like $185 a month. I think it's now gone up already to like $235 a month.
Yeah. And then the other thing is that it also involves an injection, which a lot of people are not going to want to do.
Yeah.
They're working on sort of like oral applications or whatever.
The injection actually wasn't so bad when you got it in that very nice like thingo.
But for people who are less enamored by industrial design, as Raf is.
That's true.
Yeah, I know you're a lover of beautifully designed objects. Most people just sort of get on with their lives. Anyway, but the other part of the conversation, which came up when we were talking about it with Tim Doyle as well from Eucalyptus, and we'll in a second we'll talk about their hilarious solution for this, which we mentioned at the end of last year as well. Obviously, this is a well-attested drug that's been used for like 20 plus years for diabetes control. But the other side of it is the fact that, yes, it works, clearly, but what's like the long-term solution? So it's kind of like the moment, and you and I both experienced, the moment you stop using it,
Yeah.
you just go back to normal.
Yeah. I've definitely put back on the weight that I lost taking it.
Totally.
If not, like I've put on a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of the big thing that may keep it in sort of fad territory. Like, at least I think so.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like...
It's quite uncomfortable to be on.
And
then as
it
soon as you
sucks.
stop, it comes back.
it sucks. And
Yeah.
like, it sucks to be in a position where it's sort of like...
You go to a restaurant, you don't want to eat.
Yeah, you literally can't force yourself to eat more.
Yeah, you go to a pub to have some beers with some friends, and
yes,
you just don't want beers.
Exactly. And you might lose some kilos, and great. But then when you decide, all right, I'm done with this, all those same food cravings whatever come back exactly, and then you're sort of back on it, unless they can solve that problem chemically. But neither of us are chemists.
And I eat sugary stuff now as well. That's one last thing that's actually pissed me off. It's like I never used to eat sugar. Right now, we're eating a friggin' like white choc macadamia salted caramel cookie, which I would not have gone. My body didn't crave it before.
But now you do.
It created weird cravings
thank
that
you,
have stuck around.
Thank you, Novo Nordisk.
Yeah.
That's our ultimate review. It's a drug that makes you want
Cookies.
delicious white choc macadamia cookies. So if you already like them, you're getting nothing out of this situation.
I was sleeping so much.
Yeah, so
because you're tired.
Yep,
you have no food. You're not eating anything. You've got no energy.
Yeah, but the funny thing, we were just talking about Eucalyptus. Again, we had Tim Doyle on the podcast. Very clearly, they have built their entire business model. Obviously, they are a diversified sort of online health
Yeah, we should say,
company.
so Eucalyptus, we're talking about Pilot, Juniper, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, if you're in Australia, you've seen an ad for it. Absolutely. They do all sorts of online consults and prescribing and all that kind of thing. But it's pretty clear, and Tim was very, very, very candid when he was on the podcast. If you want to listen to a guy being very candid about the business he runs, to the point that it might frighten his investors, you should go back and listen to our pharmaceuticals episode. He basically admitted that Ozempic was a huge part of
growth driver for
their growth.
Yeah,
And
which had been reported elsewhere as well.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And we spoke to him while it seemed like it was still available, which it very much isn't anymore.
Yeah.
And so to maintain that growth, they have decided to make their own, or at least like they provide the precursors to compounding pharmacies who will then make it.
Yeah, not clear if this is an infringement of patents or not.
Yeah, it's a very much up in the air, and it's kind of like...
Well, I'll say it's a legally grey zone for just, for the sake of the down round as an entity.
No, it's 100% legal grey zone, and again, this drags at 100% of the down round areas. You have an online pharmacy, which is built on creating a slick, modern software experience for accessing pharmaceuticals and also like general health treatments. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of companies that are popping up that are purporting to do this, of which Eucalyptus is a big one, but the US has heaps of them. But the idea that it's kind of like, you go on, you talk to a doctor in a fun, nice little chat bot. There's probably some AI stuff going on just to plug into the modern trends. Mm. Beautiful website, lovely design. And then that gets sent off to like an incredibly legally grey zone where like a pharmacist will compound this drug.
The precursors to Ozempic, which, where have they been got from? Who knows, but sure. And make Australian-made Ozempic.
Australian-made Ozempic.
At least 77% Australian-made Ozempic.
And it doesn't come in your cool little slick needle.
It comes in 4 syringes.
It comes in 4 syringes. So that's, certainly not something that I'd be interested in using, but whatever. And the TGA, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, which basically approves what drugs and health products are available for use in Australia, has come out and said it's not strictly illegal what they're doing, but you probably shouldn't do it. You probably shouldn't get those syringes.
Unless you have they didn't say this is now editorializing from my perspective. Unless you have a wedding coming up.
If you got a wedding, that's what the head of TGA said. He was like, don't know about this, but if you're best man, or you're getting married.
Yeah.
But nothing else.
Bridal party, groomsman, best man.
Yep. Guest? Nah.
Nah.
Regular guest? No way.
No. Celebrant? Sorry. If you're starring in a movie.
Yeah.
Then maybe.
Maybe. Get on the blower. We'll talk through it. But anyway, I think this is interesting not only as the story that it is, where it's like an incredibly hyped drug, which is dubiously legal in a lot of jurisdictions, at least for this use. But also I think this feeds into, and this again links it back into a broader sort of down round conversation as well, is that biotech, health sciences, that kind of world is rapidly growing and sort of encroaching on the tech industry at large. Yeah. So, again, it might be you might be like, I listen to Down Round because it's a tech podcast. I want to hear about apps and all that kind of stuff. SaaS businesses. Yeah. I got into this for SaaS businesses. And one thing I think you're going to find is that, and this is just a Hanno prediction, we can sort of expand that to be a Down Round prediction if you want to jump on board. You wait until I finish my thought.
Yeah.
Is that biotech is really, really increasing as an area that's receiving a lot of investment. It's often talked about as kind of like the next big wave. As like I talk about, there's always a type of business in the economy that just like attracts generally smart people, like people who don't necessarily have a specific ambition in mind. They're not going through school thinking like, I want to be a brain surgeon. I'm just talking about smart, driven people that want to be part of something, and they gravitate to certain industries. And it's always been the case. And it's been software for at least a decade.
Yeah, it was, obviously like investment banking.
Investment banking at one point. Marketing during the 20th century was like a big point. Unfortunately, that ended and then RAF got into the game.
Yeah.
Now, and like,
Then you had either end of the bell curve folks like me. Depending on the issue. Could be the dumbest thing you've ever heard or actually quite insightful.
Actually quite sharp. I think we mentioned this in another episode as well, where it's apparently a phenomenon in Saudi Arabia. If you're just like a sharp person, you just go work for Saudi Aramco and they'll find a job for you. You can be an operator there in some capacity.
I assume it's the same in like Taiwan, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
You're going to work for TSMC. You're like
exactly.
Smart.
You go work for a chip fab or something like that. Software's been that for a while, at least in like America and the Western world. But biotech is often talked about as like biotech, pharma, these sort of new therapies, drugs, whatever, are a huge area for growth. Where investment, human capital, all that kind of stuff.
I feel like we had this boom. It might be, you're younger than me, so you might not remember this. And I'm talking to you as well, the listener. But Like there was a biotech boom about a decade ago because it does have similar dynamics to startups in that this real moonshot thing, right? Like you can invest in a small lab that at the moment only has like 5 researchers or whatever that are trying to make an insulin patch that you don't actually have to inject. You can just put it on the skin or whatever. And I think this was like a hype startup at some point.
Yeah.
And right now, like...
Well, Theranos.
Well, Theranos, yeah, true.
Yeah, exactly.
But that. I mean, she definitely spilled over into real startup tech vibes.
Yep.
But, you know, it has the same things where it's like, if they can pull this off, it's going to be worth fucking shitloads. It's going to be worth billions and billions of dollars. It's a 5-person thing right now. They only need a couple $1 million to just keep researching for the next kind of year, 2 years or whatever, and just do like the, you know, very early stage trials or whatever. And you can invest a small amount of money and get a huge win if it pays off. Like if it turns out it works, then you can make shitloads of money, which is the same kind of dynamics as like an early stage startup, right? Like we have an idea, have a piece of software, it's either boom or bust. Like it's very unlikely that a biotech company is going to make just like chug along as a normal business earning, you know, a few $1 million of revenue and just like delivering you as a shareholder like 10 grand a year as
Yeah.
or whatever.
You want it to explode. And I think a canary in the coal mine for this sort of stuff is like all the attention that's been given to, we did an episode about him, Brian Johnson, the anti-aging billionaire. Who's
Blueprint.
Like the blueprint, and the guy who's made himself look like a bloodless vampire in pursuit of eternal youth.
I've since that episode, and I was vaguely enamored with him at the time, and I think I said it in our episode, like I like our billionaires to be spending their money this way. I'm now fully on board. I think he's a king.
Yeah.
I think he's a young king.
How young do you think?
Not a day above 41.
Great, so he's knocked like 4 years off his...
Biologically, 18.
Oh, amazing. No,
Sperm count, I assume 16.
Why are you talking about 16-year-old sperm count?
Well, I mean,
That's weird.
he talks about it seemingly daily.
He does, yeah. But I think it's also a canary in the coal mine for like where a lot of the fixation is going to be.
Yeah.
Like anti-aging, achieving some sort of like bodily perfection or
Yeah.
whatever, but not through effort necessarily. And I'm not saying that the secret lever is that you must be grinding constantly to achieve your perfect body, your perfect life, your perfect whatever, but doing it like pharmaceutically or with some sort of like technological therapy or whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of I think this stuff is going to explode. And I think the way you described like this beautiful industrial design needle is kind of a nice poetic way of putting it. Like imagine some sort of like biological therapeutic solution, but like pitched as an iPhone or like with Apple type branding or whatever. It's very like dystopian sci-fi, but that stuff, Theranos already kind of went by that playbook, right? That's what it was doing, but that's coming down the pipeline. And I think the whole craze around Ozempic and the sort of techy way it's talked about, and also its tech valuation. As I said, you know, it's been a long time since a company has rocketed up to the top of a entire continent's table.
The third biggest economy is in the world.
That hasn't been kind of like a software business. Like that, displaying that level of growth, I think, mark this page, slap a bookmark in, because this is what's coming down the pipes.
Yeah, I think there's a certain level of kind of black pill defeatism to all of it, right? Like, and you hear the same thing with climate change and whatnot, where people get really hyped about finding basically like a Band-Aid solution. It's not like, let's not solve the root cause, although like the Novo Nordisk Foundation or whatever claims to be. And I should say that there's criticism of the Novo Nordisk Foundation that they're just like trying to expand like into markets so they can sell Ozempic, but
Absolutely.
that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But no, there's like a defeatism to the idea that it's like, well, fuck identifying the root cause of climate change and pumping carbon into the atmosphere or whatever. We'll just come up with a technological solution, which, don't get me wrong, I'm basically of the opinion that like, if we solve this stuff, it's going to be we work out some kind of technology that just fixes it or at least Band-Aids it, you know, keeps it going.
Yeah, cloud seeding. Just like shoot a bunch of little metal ball bearings into the atmosphere.
Look, I'm
all for it.
Like suck it up and then pump it into the earth again or whatever, you know, this kind of thing.
Shoot it off into space.
Yeah, shoot off into space, this kind of thing. But point being, like, there is the idea of addressing a root cause of most of this stuff is almost like an appeal to romanticism to be discussing that idea. Like, oh, we're going to work out what the issue there is. It's just like, oh, no, it's happening. The forces that are causing causing these things to happen are far too powerful for anyone to comprehend or stop.
Well, it's a classic accelerationist thing, right? Yeah. And there's a reason why. It's kind of funny because if you read like the tech Twitter or like the tech influencers, there's a real down the middle division between guys that are like, hell yes, Ozempic, new biotech stuff. This is the solution. We need to fucking accelerate. Let's leave the past in the past. The sort of inputs of society and the various interest groups and the various contingencies you have to deal with, they don't matter. We just need to accelerate, pump a bunch of money in, get Ozempic in the water supply. Yeah. In the same way we did fluoride, whatever. Let's work out a way you could administer it through a pill. Let's work do that. And at the end of it, we're going to be skinny, muscular slaves to AI or whatever they imagine the future is. And on the other side, you have the guys that are like, actually, life is kind of about the grind. And if we lose our desire and our impetus to improve ourselves, then what have we got left? And it's very funny because, and it's a complete like moralistic argument on either side. Yeah. But you can really see that sort of dispute happening. But yeah, as I said, maybe it's a fad. It seems like a lot of the side effects, plus the fact that if you want to use it, you kind of have to be using it perpetually. Yeah, yeah. And that doesn't even consider the fact that obviously some people are going to have a bad reaction to it.
Apparently it's something like 50% of people go off it after like 2 weeks or some shit like that.
Because of the side of it, like you feel nauseous. There's obviously really extreme examples, bowel obstructions, blah, 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 which I guess is something that you face if you expand a pharmaceuticals use to like the whole population. So obviously we are not giving you medical advice.
No. Like even if you have a wedding coming up, do your own research.
It's like we're not telling you to take it. And hopefully the fact that we've talked about the elimination of desire, plus the fact it's not going to work forever, gives you some context for that. But we thought we wanted to talk about it because this is the way the world's going. Biotech, it's one of the next big crazes, and you're going to be seeing a lot more of this kind of thing. Yeah. Are you willing to sign on to my view now, having heard it?
I don't really know what it is, but I'm going to, whatever mine is, I'm going to stick with it.
Love that.